My biggest thing is with Terran is Marines. Like
Okay,
they just send a bunch of Marines over. I can't seem to deal with it.
sure.
Um, I'm not huge on Lings or Banes, so I just started using Roaches a lot more and
Yeah.
Hydras.
Uh, yeah. I mean, I would highly recommend not going. Like, if you're gold, I would definitely say roaches are going to be the easier way to go, anyways.
Okay.
Lings require more setup. They like lings are just they're good. I would say once you get to like masters or something, once you're really good at StarCraft, lings are going to be better against bio overall. But for the sake of where you're at right now in gold, the biggest problem a lot of people have is just honestly getting a build that's solid, like just doing efficient things. And roaches are way more AFK microable than lings are. Like you don't have to worry about like, oh, my roaches didn't engage as well as I would have liked. They'll still get the job done because you'll just have a lot of them because if you can macro it. But lings
Right.
definitely can get punished by a lot of things. Like you might run into a widow mine and you're like, oh, okay, well, I just lost like 30 lings and one widow mine hit. Okay, that sucks. You know, so I mean, yeah, lings are definitely the
I just got a new mechanical keyboard, and I played a few games today, and it seems like I'm able to macro a little bit faster than what I was.
sure.
So I'm looking forward to really hitting the ladder with this.
Nice, dude. Mechanical keyboards are nice. I ever since I got my first one, it's definitely it is pretty good. Just it feels good. All right, I'm gonna see something. Or I see something about your build already right now that if you're gonna go for roaches, I feel like you could already make it better. Which
Okay.
is you're going for a speedling opener based gas. This is like a standard speedling opener build, and if you're gonna, I don't know if you entirely skip lings, that's totally fine. You could make like 4 lings for the Reaper, just in case he makes a Reaper, and then just never
Yep.
get speed and go from there and go into roaches.
That's
And the
pretty much what I do.
okay, so yeah, your gas is way too fast then.
Okay.
Um, basically, a build you should be kind of going for would like just the generalized opener would be something like 17 hatch, 18 pool, 20 gas. Because right now what's happening is you're actually going gas before pool, so you're going to have so much gas in the bank. And if you don't take your drones off gas either, it's going to things like this are going to severely reduce like your mineral income, and you definitely need a lot of mineral income here to start this off. Because
Okay.
roaches don't need to be made within the first like 3 minutes of the game. They never do. Because queens, like your initial like couple lings you can make that don't even have speed, and then the queens you make could easily defend, uh, like any type of little harass. Also, your overlord, your first overlord, is going. It's on a path to go like to the upper half of his main base. I would definitely say this first overlord should be going to the natural, ideally first, so just so you can see if he expanded,
Okay.
because seeing if he expanded is so much more information for you than flying into his main base. Even though flying into his main base shows you production, the reason why I say that is because you. I'm gonna pause this and say it like this, and hopefully this makes sense. Seeing that he makes a command center guarantees there's nothing else he could have made other than like the one racks, like the standard like supply depot, barracks, command center opener, like it's the most standard Terran opener of all Terran openers. Because you see the command center, and the command center is so expensive at this stage of the game. However, if you fly into his main base, and let's just say you see 1 or 2 gases or no gases, you have so much more variance in what his build could be because you don't know where you don't know if this guy has chosen to go for 3 racks. You don't know if he's chosen to go for like if he has like 1 gas, maybe he's going for like Marauder random proxy. Maybe he's going for Reapers. Maybe he's gonna go for standard Marine into a factory. You'd have to figure more out. There's just more variance in what could happen. But if you see that command center, all variance is gone because you see the command center. You automatically know, okay, this game is no longer like if he does attack me, it's gonna be a little tiny harassment. So it's not gonna be hard to defend it, and I know I'm safe for the next like 4 minutes of this game, 3 minutes.
Okay. And I definitely always send my overlord to the main.
Yeah,
Always. So I'll definitely start doing that from now on.
yeah. It's so much like because you could send it to the natural first and then go to the main. Uh, you could follow up on it, like just get more information to figure out like after you know, okay, yeah, he has an expansion. Now, how many gas are you gonna take behind this, or whatever? Like that would be fine. But like we'll watch your Overlord Scout here for a second. We'll see what you see. I'm just gonna kind of speed up a little bit and just see how you scout. So you see one gas and you kind of back off. So like, and then you're done. Okay, now your second overlord does see the natural. Okay, I'm glad that your second overlord, so your second overlord at least saw that. But you're looking at like your build now. Okay, let's look at your larva really fast and your resources. You have 200 gas in the bank. You have 5 larvae sitting there, and I mean this build it's starting to kind of fall apart for you a little bit. And I think part of this is because you're focusing maybe a little bit too heavy on scouting. And here, again, this is the way I would say you could fix that. You could rotate your overlord's positioning opposite of what they are. So your first overlord could go to his natural, and your second overlord could go to hit the back of his main base, kind of where your first one's going now. So you can follow up a scout into his main base around like 4 to 4:30, and then you can figure out what he's actually going for tech-wise. Because if we back this up, to when your first overlord is where it is now. If you would have sent it to the left a bit more than it is, you would have been spotting his natural like now. And you can see he has a natural now. So automatically, no matter what, if he has 1 gas, 2 gas, like you can see he has 2 gas if we look at everyone's vision. But it does not matter what he opens with, because if he invests into that command center, at most, this early, the only thing he could have before that would be 1 barracks. Like, he's not going to have, like, a proxy racks or an all-in going or anything weird like that. The command center is so expensive that that tells you that you're fine already for at least the start of the game. And then your second overlord later on could go scout through his main base or something like that. Kind of, you know, where that's going to happen later. And also, if your first overlord scouts the natural, you could actually push even further forward to the ramp, and you could see what he's going for on the ramp. Like, is he going for, you know, a barracks and a reactored factory? Is he going for double barracks? Like, what, like, you know, what's he doing? Just with your first overload, you don't have to sit there either. You could just poke it, get vision of what's initially there, and then back off back to like the cliff, like right here. Can you see my ping right now on the map?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can you could just like sit in the middle of that cliff, and then you could just see what comes out of his base repeatedly. And just a tip really fast about the cliff. This is something a lot of people fuck up a lot. Look at your overlord right now, to the right of that cliff, like it's the one that's about to go into his main base. And do you see how there's that circle underneath the overlord? It's like a little yellow circle with like a dot in the center of it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people try to put the overlord itself in the center of the cliff and think that that's proper. It's actually not. What you need to do, because this cliff is very, very abusable, like a lot of people mess it up. If you put the little circle on the ground in the very center of that cliff, so the circle is in it's like a bullseye circle in the center of that cliff right there, then your overlord is invisible. Because it's your overlord's vision, like vision of air units, is based off of that ground circle. It's not actually where they are on the screen, it's the circle always. So keep that in mind for, you know, if you put your overlord there in the future. I mean, you might do it this game with your second overlord, but yeah. So yeah, scouting wise, again, just to make it really simple, scout at least the natural, and then you can scout again with the second overlord in his main base at like 4 minutes, and you're gonna have all the information you need. As long as you see that first command center. And if you don't see a first command center, I would say you could sack an overlord and just fly it in and be like, what are you doing? Like, what's happening right now? Alright, now going back to your build, alright? So every single second that goes by when you have gas being mined that you don't need yet is definitely going to slow your build down overall a lot. And then also always trying to be in the habit of making your priority when you play StarCraft your base and not your opponent's. Because if I went back to you know, like, we'll go back for just a second to like 212, and we're gonna make this go fast. I want to see your camera, and I want to see what you look at for this period of time. This is when your larva really stacks up, and your camera, it goes to his base. You're staring at his base. While you're staring at his base, you did make a round of larva there for a sec, and you're looking at his base again, and you're not doing anything with your base at the moment, moving stuff around. But like, the point I'm trying to make here is I think you're focusing a bit too hard on what he's doing, because we're talking Gold League here, right? I think you're focusing I think you're focusing a little bit too hard on what he's doing and not enough on what you're doing, because even though you're trying to get a good read on, like, okay, so he's got a gas, he's got, you know, the natural base has a command center with my double overlord scout, And double Overlord Scout this fast is already advanced as it is. What's happening as a trade-off is your larva is so far behind now that even if you, the thing is even if you pick the right thing, where you're like, I know exactly what he's doing, and right now I would say you don't have enough information to really know what he's doing, but let's just say you did pick it and you're like, I know exactly what this is, and you picked the correct thing, you still can't deal with it properly because your build is already so far behind. Because your build is just becoming inefficient. So the point, the final point, and then I'll move on from this, that I'm trying to make is, you can do the wrong thing efficiently, and it's better than doing the right thing inefficiently. So even if you made the wrong units, you'd still be better off if you just did it efficiently. So what would be efficient for you would be always keeping your larva at 1 or 0, literally the whole time. And how do you do that? It's the 5SD shit I always talk about in B2GM. Just getting in the habit of muscle memory going. No matter what you're doing, if you move an Overlord, you alternate that task with 5SD. Click the Overlord, move it again, 5SD. Click the Overlord, move it again, 5SD. Click your Zergling, move it over to the front of your base, 5SD. Inject your hatchery, 5SD. Make a drone and rally it to your natural mineral line, 5SD. Always 5SD. Or for you, it's 1 or 2 SD because your hatcheries are on 1 and 2. That's totally fine. Just getting in the habit, though, of making drones repeatedly. Because if this ever happens where you have 6 larvae, this is so unacceptable for efficiency. Because whenever your larva hits 3 per hatchery, you cap out, your hatchery stops, it just stops generating larvae. And that slows you down so much. And then also the amount of time when the drones could have been mining. That's like seconds that are going by where a percentage of your economy is missing. And then also, I know I didn't say this at the beginning, and I just want to make sure you know this. If I'm talking and I'm in the middle of a sentence and you would really want to ask something, by all means, please feel free to interrupt me and just say it. I won't mind. I just want to make sure you fully understand what's going on, and if you have a question, you can by all means ask.
Cool, appreciate it.
But yeah, like the speed at which your natural is being saturated is very slow. And it's because of the larva, and it's also because of the gas you're mining. So if you actually would have gone for like the build I talked about earlier, where it's like a 17 hatch, 18 pool, 20 gas, what you could do is you could start a layer after your queen is done in the main base. You could start a second queen after your first queen's done at the natural. So you'd be going up to 3 queens. You have the 4 lings like you do to deal with like the Reaper, and then you're literally just going drone as fast as you can, because the goal is to get your natural fully saturated as fast as physically possible.
Alright.
Yeah, your larva is definitely being neglected way too long. And like right now, you shouldn't, I'm not gonna lie, you should not even be able to afford this 3rd base yet. And the reason why is the only reason why you can't afford it is because you're, it's so far behind for you in how like the larva expenses. It's just because it's been neglected for so long that your money kind of ramped up, and the fact that your money ramped up on a lower drone count, it really goes to show that that your build is falling behind because you're ramping up with the low drone counts. All right.
I was definitely scouting way too long.
Yeah, no, I think you're because again, let me just say it like this too. You could honestly just focus instead of focusing. I think this is how you're playing StarCraft right now. You're going, all right, I got a game. The game just started. I need to figure out what he's doing and not die. And then you're like, okay, I need to scout. Okay, what is he all-inning me? Is he attacking me? Like, what is he building? And you're is he expanding? You're focusing so hard on what he's doing when you should not even care really much at all, other than the fact that, okay, he took an expansion, we're good to go. That's literally it. That's all you should really figure out for the most part. I would say this 4-minute drone, the 4-minute Overlord Scout that I was talking about earlier, that's even kind of above Gold League. That's probably more like in the Platinum range, I would say. Because if you just focus, instead of focusing again on like what's happening with your opponent, just focus on like a time trial for yourself. Be like, can I do what I did last game faster this time? Which could be literally as simple as expand to your natural, fully saturate your natural as quick as you can with the proper build of the, the 17 hatch, 18 pool, 20 gas. Your goal could be going into a Roach Warren, Evo Chamber wall off, like a semi wall off in front of your base, going into a good drone count, and then once you're fully saturated on main and natural, you make like a round of roaches to be safe with. Like we're talking like 10 roaches, and then you fully saturate your third base, and then you can crank out an army if you want to, or you can saturate a fourth base if you want to. You can literally pick either one. But if you make that your time trial, you're gonna have games where you're gonna be like, I don't even know what my opponent's doing. Other than the fact that he expanded, he could be going bio for all I know. He could be going mech for all I know. I have no idea. But then suddenly he shows up and attacks your base, and you're like, what? Okay, he only had like, like 13 Marines attacking me, and I had 15 roaches, which just like means that my supply was at like 60 and his supply was at like 44 or something like that. And you just like crush his army. And then from there, you just like, you explode with supply if you hit that high drone count, because then at that point too, when he attacks you, you could be at like 66 drones and he's at like 29 SCVs, and you're just crushing. That's honestly how you get out of Gold League and how you advance from there.
I've definitely been playing reactive since the patch.
Yeah.
It seems like, I keep trying to macro, and then boom, they're hitting me faster than I can, react to it.
You're playing reactive styles, but you can't even play a reactive style properly because you don't actually have macro going on for the most part. Like your larva a minute ago capped out at 6 for a while, and it's doing it again right now. You're chilling at 6 larva for a while again. So I would say you're not focusing nearly enough on the macro side of things. You're focusing way too hard on the scouting side.
I need to get into the habit of doing, like you said, the 5 SD after everything, because I try to do it all in one lump sum and then go on about what I'm doing.
Yeah, and the macro never ends. The way you should think about it is like this, okay? Every single like 10 seconds, you should be macroing every 10 seconds, and then that never ends. And when I say macroing, that includes injecting your hatcheries. That includes making your larva. That includes watching your mineral lines and making sure they're saturated properly. Like you're not oversaturating or undersaturating. And this also includes your gases. This also includes expanding on time. This also includes building things like your tech and whatever, like your Roach Warren or an upgrade from an Evo Chamber, anything like that. This includes every aspect of your build overall. And you're supposed to like repeatedly check all these things every 10 seconds. Like you're like, obviously if you made the Roach Warren, I'm not going to be like, well, now check and see if it's still being built. Like obviously you made the Roach Warren, so you made the Roach Warren, so that's fine. But a big one is going to be the main one that you're always checking every 10 seconds. Larva. Because it will spawn repeatedly nonstop. It never ends. And then the goal you should be going for, just in general, is being able to macro fast enough, because you've done it so often and it's becoming muscle memory for you that you can just do it really fast, that you can not only macro within every 10 seconds, but now you have nothing to do because you can do it so fast that now you can do things like, okay, now I will scout. Because like for that other 5 seconds of my 10 seconds, it took me 5 seconds to macro everything I wanted to do, and now I know I'm waiting for a sec. I'll scout for 5 seconds and I'll go right back to macroing. Like that is kind of the goal you should start having for yourself, where you start adding on little bits of things after or like during the time you're macroing, but you don't just sacrifice macro to do something else. That's where a lot of people get kind of stuck when they hit these skill caps in StarCraft, is they do one task or the other and then one or the other, but it really should always be macro, it never stops. And then you add on little tasks on top of that all the time. And it's everything in the game. Like macro is like the king of StarCraft, the most important task, and then it's like maybe you'll add on a little bit of micro here. You'll add on a little bit of scouting there. You'll add on a little bit of reactionary play where you're like trying to set something up, but you never stop macroing ever. And it obviously the first like 6 to 8 minutes of the game starts with the making drones aspect of it, and then the rest of the game is making an army aspect of it.
I'll definitely work on that more.
Yeah, because you're going for a third base. I'm going to give you a number here, okay? You're going for a third base, and you're skipping speed. You're going straight layer roaches. You could be at 66 drones at 5.5 minutes. 66 drones at 5.5 minutes. If you're skipping speedlings, which is what you're doing. And right now you are at 47. And you know that's in your third base is not being like again the larva problem is happening where you have 9 larvae again right now and you have no inject as well on your third. You actually aren't injecting your bases on any of your bases. All these hatcheries are just they're capping because your queens all have quite a bit of energy right now. All your hatcheries are kind of like capping out. So a way to fix this should be what you're doing, okay? This should be your goal. Every single, like, I'm not even kidding, dude. Every like 10 seconds, you should be like this. Go to your main, look at your main, you know, inject your base, look at your numbers on the hatchery and the gas. Like, just make sure those are okay. And once they are okay, you can kind of stop looking at that so hard. But just always do look at the queen though, and be like, all right, cool. Okay, go to the natural, same thing. Go to the third, same thing. And then while you're doing this, like, while you're injecting, you make a round of drones. And then you can be like, okay, well, I just made drones, and now and then you have a moment to be like, okay, do I need to make an overlord? Do I need to make a roachworm? Do I need to make a hydrogen? If any of these things are yes, you do them, and then you go, and then you alternate the task back to what you just did, which is make drones again. And then you can look at another task, and if the task is no longer make your hydrogen, make your roachworm, make an evo chamber, whatever, if those are all done, you can be like, do I need to spread creep? Yep. And then you just do creep instead. And then you go back into making drones. Every task you do should be alternated with macro every single time.
Okay.
And then if your hatcheries are on the same hotkey, which it looks like they are on 1, that'll make your life easy because you'll never miss larva then. I would highly recommend always having your hatcheries in the same hotkey so you can just grab all of it and make it all. Another thing too is I'm going to ask you a question. If you were to inject your bases, okay? How would you move your camera around your bases? What would you do?
Just like you're doing now.
Just move it around like up and down, left and right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
I haven't really figured out the hotkeys yet.
That's totally fine. I'm going to give you a recommendation then. Go to options really fast. Hit F10, go to options, and go to mouse and keyboard. And what is your keyboard scroll speed? It's the bottom middle scroll bar.
42%.
Okay, that's not bad.
Oh wait, no. Keyboard is 38.
Okay. If you want to, if you feel like you want to make this a little faster, you could try and bump it up a little bit so that you can scroll around the screen a little bit quicker so that you can make your injecting process go a little faster if you're scrolling around the screen.
Okay.
I do 50. 50, if you're looking at my stream, is this fast. It definitely can get you around pretty quick. So,
all right.
Yeah, I mean, for now, before you actually have an inject method you're comfortable with, this would help you just do it faster. It would also help you spread creep faster. And once it'll feel probably a little bit fast and awkward if you're not used to it, but once you do get more used to it, it'll start feeling comfortable. But now, again, just going back to the build, it's the biggest problem you have for sure is your it's your larva for real. Because again, it's okay, you spent it, but it keeps going up to like you get. It honestly, if you were doing it well, it should be saying 1 1 2 1 1 2 1 1 1 1 2 1. So, like you're just constantly spinning it as soon as you get any larva, and maybe like because you have multiple hatcheries now, 2 might spawn at the same time just by chance. And the only time the number should ever go up a bit is when you have an inject pop off, but then you spin it ideally pretty fast. But your number keeps going up to like 5, 6, 8, 9, 5. And it's just because you have your macro cycle is way too infrequent. It's like right now it's going all right. But look at this though. Like you for the last like 30 seconds was one of the first times I would say this game that I actually watched you spin the larva 1 1 2 1 1 1 2 1. Like that was good. But the only problem with it was I haven't seen you inject your hatcheries in a very long time. Your main actually got injected, but it still has 90 energy. Your natural has not been touched in a long time, and your third hasn't been injected either. So these are definitely other larva problems you're having where you're not giving yourself enough either. If you ever find yourself having a problem like this where you're like, fuck, I have so much energy on my queens, just hold shift and spam inject the hatchery because you can queue it up.
Oh, okay.
And then also another thing you can do. So what will happen if you like spam inject? Like let's say you're natural, for instance. You hit inject, you hold shift to queue up commands, and you just go inject, 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 inject 4 times on that hatchery. The queen will literally inject it 4 times, and then the injects will pop one after another, after another, after another. It'll literally do it 4 times in a row for you automatically. But if you ever find yourself having a problem like this often, where you're like, okay, I keep missing my queen injects, just make a macro hatch in one of your bases. I would say the main is probably the easiest because the main is usually always the largest base, so it's going to be the least obnoxious to move around.
Sure.
You could put an a macro hatch in your main, and then what you could do is you could hold shift and inject both hatcheries, like spam click both of them, and then you could take the queen in your main that had a lot of energy and rotate it. So you could be like, hey, queen in the main, go to the natural, and now click the queen in the natural, and have the queen in the natural inject the hatchery at the natural like once, and come back to the main. And what you could do is you could have macro hatches be spam injected with your main base, and you could just rotate a queen, like, you know, your main queen with your natural, and then your main queen with your third, if that makes sense. Like you could,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
yeah, and then you could just, so you could spam up injects on multiple hatcheries, while you keep injecting once at a time on the other hatcheries. It's like a good way to reset if you've missed a lot of injects.
Which I usually do end up. The energy usually fills up.
Yeah, because I would say it's not the most ideal thing either. If you have like 200 energy, and then you just spam inject one hatchery with 200 energy, because it's gonna take forever for that to always take effect. Like each inject takes about 30 seconds. So if you're doing that 8 times, you're talking 4 minutes later. You're gonna actually have you're gonna reap the rewards of that larva, like all of it. But if you have macro hatches and you're injecting multiple, well, you divide that by 2 or 3, and suddenly it's way faster. It might only take like 90 seconds to get all of it, or something like that. But yeah, and now you have an attack coming onto your base. So this is I would say a result of just, again, it's just you don't have enough, and you also don't have you don't have enough units because your larva has been neglected a bit, and you also don't have any creeps that are really going on. And I think it's up because your priorities are kind of just misplaced. And if they were just like if your priority was the mechanical macro aspect of the game rather than the scouting aspect, and you could play this game honestly, but what I'm trying to say is you could play this game kind of with your brain turned off, and you'd have a much better result, because I think what you're doing is you're just distracting yourself too much about things you're thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Just developing the muscle memory task of just handling the mechanic of Zerg is what you should be definitely going for, and you just have so much more. And that'll give you such like a better learning point of the game. Okay, so like right now, you scouted him again, and you just looking at his base right now, what would you say this is?
Mech.
Yeah. So I would agree with you. It's definitely mech. We have double armory. We have like 5 factories and a starport. It's 2 starports and 5 factories actually, because he's making a second starport. Now, I'm gonna do something else to you right now. I'm gonna ask you another question. What do you think is gonna come out of this now? Like obviously it's mech, but what would you start thinking about if you saw this in your game?
Thorst.
Okay.
Definitely, he's got a few tanks. Throw out a couple Hellions for Zerglings. That's what and then probably because it's happened so much, he's gonna throw a couple VCs at me.
Okay. So, what would you do then to respond to that?
What I used to do is get a bunch of Hydras and Lurkers and be ready for it, but Terran, for some reason, recently me against Terran hasn't been going so well, so
Sure.
I get
And
real nervous when I'm playing them.
why would you say that is? Is it because like it's just hard to micro against their armies or something?
Just because I've been getting pooped on, and from talking to you so far, it's just because my macro isn't there.
Yeah.
Keeping up on everything.
And then okay, and I'm gonna ask you another question. And let's say you were talking about going into like lurkers and stuff earlier. How would you go about doing that? Like, what would you do if you went lurker style?
I would have the 10 roaches or so, and then I would already be pumping out Hydras, build the lurker den, and probably the Evo chamber, and then upgrade my uh, hatchery.
Okay.
I'd upgrade the hatchery first, and then
Okay. And then
go switch.
I think the thing I'm trying to kind of like there's like a point I have here, and with all these questions I'm asking you,
Mhm.
and the point overall is you can look at this. I want you, instead of thinking about everything you just thought about. Like I asked you to answer the questions, and I'm glad you did, and that's what you should have done. But when you see something like this, all I want you to do, if you scout his base like this, I want you to literally think about what he's doing for all of 1 second, and go, he's mech, cool,
Okay.
and that's it. Does not matter if it's tank-based mech. It does not matter if it's Thor-based mech. It does not matter if it's a heavy Hellbat, if it's Cyclone, if it's got some BCs mixed in, if it's got Liberators mixed in, if it's got Banshees mixed in. It doesn't matter what it is. I just want you to be like, oh yeah, it's mech, cool. And then that's all you do. And you move on and you focus on yourself again. Because doing things like that is where everyone fucks up the game. When you look at somebody else's build and you start trying to analyze like what's going on, like, okay, well, he could have this, he could have that. Okay, so what should I do then? I should maybe do this. I could go lurkers to deal with that. Like, honestly, I'm gonna tell you right now, you don't even go lurkers. You don't even need
Okay.
it. Lurkers, I would say, is something you should maybe start dipping into and delving into around like diamond. Because you could actually use them properly, and you could do that. But like right now, if you use lurkers, what I see happening is you're gonna overthink the situation way too hard and be like, all right, I'm gonna make lurkers, and that's gonna slow down just the build up for you, because you're gonna be like hesitating about what you want to be doing, because you're gonna be thinking about possibilities of what could happen, and then when it comes time to actually use the lurker, you're gonna have to try to force an engagement where lurkers get to do something, where ideally you want to make them cost efficient, right? And then
Right.
trying to set that up is gonna take you it could just blow up in your face and you'd be like, wow, that was a bad fight. Or it could just be something where you spend so much time looking at the lurker trying to set something up and you're just not macroing at all, because you're overcommitting to the micro when you shouldn't be microing at all. So essentially what I'm trying to say here is all you really should do is just, your goal should be get a good economy, maintain that good economy, and just pump out units once you're there. And these units could be as simple as, oh, he's mech and there is starports involved. I'll just go heavier on Hydrocide because air units could be there. Or if you're like, oh, he's going bio, and I'm gonna make more roaches. Or you don't have to actually change your composition at all. You could literally just be like, I'll make safety roaches and just go mass hydras all game. You could even do that. I'm not even kidding, and not give a shit about your composition at all, because right now, composition isn't your problem. It's definitely how fast you can produce it. It's not about what it is. It's about how fast you produce, because again, it's macro. So becoming able to handle the macro aspects of the game is really all you should be focusing on at the moment. And a way to really do that, like the way to just go about playing the game, is just focus on inject, focus on creep, focus on not supply blocking, focus on 5SDing your ass off until you're at that ideal drone count. And then once you're like at 150, 160, 170 supply or something like that, you could send one roach on like either side of the map and just like shift a move every one of his expansions, just to see where his furthest out bases are. And once you find the furthest out base, you just take your whole army and a move it, and you don't micro it again. You don't look at it. When I did Beta GM series, I honestly did not do the things where I was like, look at me guys, I'm not looking at my army, to just be like, it's cool. I honestly did it because I really want people who are learning the game to also do the exact same thing, to not look at their army, because I want
Yeah. The first time I seen you do that, I was watching GM and I laughed my ass off. I was like, damn, he just literally sent his whole army, wiped out 2 bases, and went back to what he was doing.
yeah, like, because you're not going to actually, as a gold player, you're only going to hurt yourself more than you're going to help yourself if you look at the fight, because the level of understanding of how units work for a newer player to the game, or someone who is just in a lower skill league in general, I feel like there is an aspect called over microing. And if you over micro shit and you're like focus firing one unit, and now suddenly a lot of your units are not actually getting proper DPS done, or if you're stutter stepping way too fast and you're actually missing out a lot of DPS, or anything like this where you're not microing to the unit's full extent of its capabilities, it would just be better off if it A-moved at that point. And then when you micro, when you're in a lower league, almost like 99% of the time, it's a very high, it's pretty much guaranteed that you're not going to macro while you micro. It's just not going to happen. So then you're giving yourself this, you're falling into like this hole if the game doesn't end there, where you have to recover back out of it later because you're neglecting it during the seconds that are going by right now when it matters more. So that's definitely the aspect of the game that you should be focusing on for sure. And it goes back with the thing I said earlier in the lesson, where it's not about just only macroing forever. It's about becoming so comfortable with macro that you can do it so fast that you can then add on other things to it while not neglecting macro. See that right there? You are microing right now. I could see it a little bit.
Yeah, I tend to get in there and try to focus down the tank.
Yeah, and
I'm
gonna show you something right now with your micro. We'll break this one engagement down really fast. So he's here. You're microing. I'm gonna say right now you move commanded into him, and up to this point right now I didn't mind it, because the reason why is because there is a bit of a concave, or there's a bit of a choke point here for your concave, and he's also in the middle of killing the rocks. So if you get a little close to him, I think it'd be totally fine, and then you could A-move him in a second here. And the proper way to micro this, if you wanted to be as best micro as you could, would be A-move him right now, green box the entire right side of the chunk of your army, and then you would move command it to the right side of the tank on the ramp. You would create a concave and a line on the right side of where the majority of his army is. That's how you would micro this properly. Because what would happen is your Hydras in the front line would start killing his army. You would move, while you're killing his army, you would move the right side of the chunk to the right side of his army, which is away from the Hellbats, and it would create more of a DPS line for you because it would increase the size of your concave, and then you would just have a lot of DPS here to kill him. That would be the ideal. That is probably the best, most optimal way to micro this, out of any way you could do it. But again, I don't think you should micro at all. I think right now you should, at this point, you should just go A-move. If you look at the very center of his army, and you see how there's a fog of war back there with the ramp on the left ramp, not the right one.
Yeah.
If you just A-moved that ramp, it would, because it's fog of war, your Hydras would not focus fire anything, but they would be on a kill command until they get to that location, basically. So they would go through his entire army to get there. If you just A-move that ramp and then immediately went back to your hatcheries and injected, made units, expanded again, that is actually what you should do right now. That would be what I would say you should definitely be doing. Because again, I don't expect you to understand the proper way to micro everything right now, because we're talking Gold League here again, right? So, and you're going to be stuck in Gold League forever if you don't prioritize the higher, more important aspects of the game. Because if this was a Masters player or a GM player who knew how to micro this army the most efficient way you could, this player is also not going to have almost 200 energy on queens sitting in the bases and not spinning larva that's 12 right now, etc., 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 and 3,000 in the bank. A player who's already Masters or GM is going to have all of the macro tasks are going to be done already, and then the bonus is going to be microing the fight. They're not going to neglect macro tasks and then micro the fight. So you for now, just for learning steps, it has to be a macro focus, just so you don't neglect things that are more important, and then you can micro as a bonus. But anyways, now let's watch how your fight goes. And your Hydras, I'm not going to say your Hydras are going to lose this fight automatically, but you're going to move into the Hellbats and you're going to start getting roasted in the Hydra's face because you're move commanding way too much. So you move into him, you start attacking, and you focus fire the tank. And now the tank is not super far in the back. It's mostly in the front, but this is one of those things I'm talking about where you're focus firing a tank, and this is actually worse for you. And here's why. In this particular situation, a tank is not sieged, and Hellbats are right in your face. Hellbats also die faster than tanks do, and his Hellbats will always be in a closer proximity, or a closer range to your Hydras because they're melee units, they're not range units. Hellbats kill Hydras faster here than tanks do when they're not sieged. These Hellbats are actually the scarier target here than the tank. Gotcha. So if you focus fire that tank, you will kill that tank, but the Hellbat that's in your face would do more damage than that tank would. Like, just the one Hellbat, if it auto-attacked you, it would do more damage than that tank would. Because the tank only does 15 damage to a Hydra, a Hellbat does 18 damage to a Hydra, and a Hellbat also cleaves. So it's gonna, that one front Hellbat's gonna hit like 3 Hydras at once. So it's actually gonna do triple the damage as well.
Okay.
And then if you also think about it like this, there's some Hellbats that are closer to your army than that tank is. And now if you look at the middle of your army, you're gonna have some Hydras in the back of your army. Some of your Hydras that would be in range to attack his Hellbats are going to be trying to get in range to hit that tank, but you can't because there's a concave block here. So, yeah, so like your Hydras are missing a lot of DPS here. And then now it starts A-moving. And you're focus firing a tank again in the back. And you're focus firing another tank in the back. And these Hellbats are just fucking roasting you like crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you would have lost almost no... I'm not even kidding. You would have probably lost, like, almost no Hydras if you just A-moved it. When we had it paused a minute ago, when I was telling you could have A-moved it there. Because you would have been killing Hellbats as they try to engage you. And you had so many Hydras that you could have actually popped them pretty fast. But now you've lost, like, a third of your Hydras already. And you've only killed the tanks. And now, because you have less Hydras, these Hellbats are going to die at a slower pace. Because you have less DPS, and now they're actually going to get connections where they're going to get in melee range faster, or more often, and they're going to start killing more Hydras because of this. And the proper way to micro this, again, if it's just Hellbats, if we were talking about a Master's level, or like a high level GM, whatever, you would actually kite this backwards, because Hellbats are slower than Hydras, and Hellbats have less range than Hydras, so you could kite back, attack, kite, attack, and you could just create distance between your army and his army, especially since you have creep here. That'd be the proper way to micro this now. If he were to chase you and you wanted to back up, if you didn't have enough DPS, just to outright kill him. But if you just stand here and concave it, this would be incorrect just to fight just Hellbats. But again, it shouldn't matter for you right now, because you should just have A-moved it in the first place, and this wouldn't have been a problem in the first place. Especially if you focused on macro and you just had more Hydras than you did. Because if you think about it like this fight, I mean, you'd be crazy if you said yes to this question. But the question would be, do you think at 9 minutes when this fight started that you had the peak, like the highest amount of Hydras that's physically possible for Zerg to have? And the answer would obviously be no, because there was a lot of hiccups in your macro here and there. Right. But if the answer to that was yes, where it was like, yeah, I macroed as well as I possibly could have, that was like, I literally did the best macro physically possible, you would have had so many fucking Hydras here that you could have microed this in a way where you could have A-moved it, and your Hydras could have been in the worst position possible, and he could have already been sieged, just pounding your Hydras, and you still would win that fight convincingly. Because your army would be 200 supply, and his army would be like 130. You would just have so much more than he would. And look how he's microing it too. Like, he's doing the same fucking thing. This is what, like, so many players in Gold League do. Watch his Hellbats. I'm going to go back to that exact moment. Watch his Hellbats. So you just killed the tanks. And now your Hydras are so deep into enemy range right now. Or into like the melee range of Hellbats. Watch his Hellbats right now. He's trying to focus fire one of your units in the back. You can see what unit it is. Look at where all the look at his Vikings. Do you see how all the Vikings are staring at one Hydra? He physically said auto attack that Hydra. Or he right clicked it. And it's in the back of your line. So now all of his Hellbats are like, well, I'm not able to get to there, so I'm going to go walk around the Hydra line to be able to attack that. Like, he totally fucked himself as well by A-moving one of your units. If he would have just A-moved the ground, he would have been so much better off as well. So you both took a bad micro fight. Because you both tried to micro it. Like, you both reduced efficiency of your units. And now he killed, like, no Hydras there when he should have killed a shitload. Because he had, like, 8 Hellbats in melee range of a bunch of Hydras. Which would have been actually pretty juicy if he would have just auto-attacked in a concave. Alright, we're going to speed this up a little bit now. I think what I'm going to do now for the rest of this is... And same thing is happening here again. I think you're over-microing. You focus fire to Thor there. When it should just be... At this point, it should just be looking for future expansions and making sure you always have a lead. Because like right now, you're only at 59 drones, and you have a bunch of larvae that's sitting there again. You have not been injecting that much. Your queens are all, again, still really close to like 200 energy. And if you make Hydras again right now, I would say that's incorrect because you have map control. Like he just threw his army away, and you don't have an ideal drone saturation. So if you walk across the map and now throw your army away, you're going to remake units and you're going to stay at a low drone count. When if you would have just sat back after you killed his army, made a drone wave to get to an ideal drone count, which is around 80, and then make units, you could then make units all game from that point on and max out repeatedly and then actually do full damage, like full power Zerg pushes.
Okay.
But yeah, you're making units again as your units died. So you're in this phase where you're like low supply, push, and now you're making drones again. So like these drones could have been made faster. It's just one of those things where it's a little inefficient. Like throwing away units, remaking hydras that died, and then making drones. Like those hydras could have just sat back here defensively, and you could have had what you have now already. And all these hydras could have been drones, and you could have been at that saturation super fast. You would already be in the 80 range right now, and you'd be back into the full hydra pumping phase.
Gotcha.
And like right now when you're doing nothing, this should definitely be that time when all you should be doing is injecting your hatcheries and spreading your creep. And then between those two things, making hydras. And periodically, every once in a while, checking your base for like upgrades.
Mutation complete.
And you're going lurkers, which is definitely more of a... It's I would say lurkers is good against Hellbat Thor. I have said that before. But it's definitely not required in Gold League. Because again, if either one of you just didn't micro and just A moved, and if either one of you focused on macro and did it to a point where it was relatively good, you would be so much better off. And like right now, you're maxing out at 13 minutes. You're hitting max at 13. Before this, you have not been maxed yet. And a big part of that, like you could have definitely been maxed a lot sooner, but a big part of that is because you didn't have the most efficient build and you didn't spend your money. And it's because you're focusing on tasks that are more technical, like lurker hydra pushing. So now you guys are base trading. The game is going to get a little weird now. The best way you could do this at this, so we'll just talk about what's happening now rather than what's already happened. But I feel like this, just to throw this out there as a disclaimer, I feel like none of this would have happened again if your macro was just on point. You would have just punished him repeatedly and he would have just died. But now at this stage, what I would say you need to do, okay, this is a great idea for base trades. If you run some of your drones away, if you can, that is obviously ideal. If you know a base trade's about to happen, and then before your main dies, build tech again that requires a hive or requires a layer at a new base. Like rebuild your tech before your tech actually is dead. Because if you don't if you don't rebuild your tech and the hive dies, you're gonna have to start all over again from the very beginning.
And I think I did start on the far left base, but it was after everything was said and done.
Yeah. So what you could do too is if you know a base trade's happening, like you know his army's at your base and you know your army is at his base, break into his base as fast as you can. Like maybe instead of killing the command centers with your whole army, leave like 5 hydras or something to kill a command center, and then move the rest of your army forward. Or just like leave a little bit there and just send the majority, or like leave a lurker burrow there or whatever. But just try to get into it like the heart of his base as fast as you can. That way he can't establish a defense with new units that are being made. And once you break his base, once you know like, okay, yeah, I broke his base. Same exact concept that you did for the command center a second ago that I just said. Leave just a few units there to kill it, to finish killing his base. And then you could send your whole army, the majority of your army, kind of like back to your base once you know you've broken his base, and then you could kind of like cover your new tech and you could like, you know, hold him off there. Because I mean, if you just leave your whole army to kill every single last building one by one, that's not bad, but you're gonna keep losing your base at the same time. Like any new expansion you make could die repeatedly, all these things. When if all you did was broke his base, you can't just like rebuild an army if you're maxed out already. And especially if you just wiped out a bunch of his like supply depots and shit like that, he's gonna like look at his supply right now. It's deep red, right? So he can't actually build any new units anyways. So if you confirm that he doesn't have any units sitting at his base because you actually overpower his production really fast, again because it's a base trade and you know the majority of his army is not in his base, Rushing into the production is totally fine then, and being like, okay, yeah, no, it's just production. Nothing's even being built here, and now I'm just literally overpowering everything. You can overpower the a good like 50% of his base with your whole army right away, because that will only take a few seconds, and then just leave like 10 hydras at his base, and just let 10 hydras just clean up the remnants of like, oh, gases, armory, one command center here, a factory over there, a starport that's floating. Like a few hydras could finish that off, and you'd be fine. And then yeah, if you just guard your drones, his life is now all in, and you're not. And the way you should do it too, okay, so also I just watched you micro again right there, and your hydras kind of like ran into it. They all like had to run behind the mineral line. You move commanded it essentially. What you should go for is you could 100% move command into like his production in the center of his main base, and then just move it for a second just to make sure he doesn't have units there, and then maybe like do a select all army, and then okay, well, you're not using control groups at all either. Do you ever use control groups yet?
Yeah, I do sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, so if it's a situation like this, what you could do is you could just say select all army, attack, move to back to my base, like your bottom left base, to cover it, and then you could be like control 2 or control 3 on just like 10 hydras, and just go shift a like hold shift and a move around his base, like literally like around a move around the main, or a move around the natural, a move around the third. Just make sure he doesn't have any bases that you like. If he has a planetary, for instance, yes, you need to overpower that with the majority of your army. But if we're talking about killing depots, factories that are not producing a command center, maybe like 5 SCVs that have ran to the corner of his base, things like this where it's remnants of Terran, you don't need to send your whole army to kill that at this stage. You'd be better off,
Trying to answer the.
Yeah, like I'm not telling you to like push his army, but guard your base.
Okay.
Because I mean, you went lurkers, so. To be fair, I don't think you should have lurkers here in the first place at all either. I'm just gonna throw that out there. It's yeah. I will say that the speed at which you base rated him was not bad. I can't really get up. Like you're actually, the way you've base rated this out, the way you've kind of microed it, is I actually don't mind it. You killed his base, you killed important things, and you got back to your base before his army is going to kill your relocation. So this was fine. And then you even left a couple lurkers to kill what you just found, a new command center location. And now think about it like this too. If you actually had a lot of creep spread, dealing with someone who base raids you like this is going to be so fucking easy, because if you've been creep spreading the whole game, where
Can't put anything
exactly, he can't really relocate anywhere because creep is everywhere.
I definitely been lacking on my creep spread, like 100%. The
Yeah.
injects as well. Anything to do with the queens.
Yeah.
I started doing the queens early, like, so I'm definitely working on that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I definitely think it's just because you're focusing on the tasks that aren't really what you're supposed to focus on yet. All right. So one more thing. Let's do one last thing, and I'll give you an idea here. Leave that replay, and then
Okay.
I will re-invite you to the party. I'll just remake the party really fast, and I'll invite you to a game, and I'm gonna give you an example game, and then we'll I will describe to you what I'm doing as well while we do it. So you can like know what the priorities should be, more or less. All right, and then I'm gonna make you a referee. And then while I'm talking to you too, again, if you have questions about anything that happened so far, by all means, feel free, ask away.
So on the flip-flopping the observers in the beginning, doing the natural first, would you say I should just go up, scout the natural, fall back immediately to that little rock?
Yeah, I'll show you exactly my scouting that I would recommend you do.
Okay.
It'll make your life really easy. So far, all we're doing is, we're doing the setup of the build here. Basically, the goal is going to be 17 hatch, 18 pool, 20 gas. That is the only thing I'm going to give you numbers on. You don't need to have a build all the way to 200 supply. It's just the initial opener. about like understanding when to throw down your first gas and your first hatchery and stuff like that in your pool, because that does change the pace heavily of how efficient your build's going to be. And if you're not going to go for speedlings, there is zero reason why you should go for gas before pool, because all that's going to do is give you way too much gas, and it's not going to give you enough minerals to really support the build you're trying to do. Because you're not trying to rush roaches here. You're trying to get roaches after you've made drones. Because you're not doing an all-in. You're doing a macro build.
Right.
So the second I made the hatchery, even though I couldn't even do drones, I hit 5SD, 5SD. And like the third time I hit it, a drone was... I had like then 50 minerals to make a drone. So our first overlord's going... And I'm waiting now for a pool. And the second I make the pool, I'm doing 5SD while looking at my overlord that's scouting his base. And I'm just making sure it's going to the right spot. I've clicked on the middle of his ramp between the main and the natural. The very center of the ramp. And I'm still 5SDing while I'm talking to you. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just doing it. 5SD, 5SD, 5SD. And now we're at 20 supply. So I'm going to grab... I'll just grab a new drone that just spawned. And I'll make it go take a gas. 5SD, 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 5SD. Overlord in front of my natural is going to chill here for just a little bit longer until this hatchery is almost done. This would keep you safe from all-ins. Like, you would see bunker proxies and stuff like that, so you could react to it properly. I'm still 5SDing. And then I'm going to take 3 drones, and I'm going to put them on that gas, because it's done. And I can re-rally now my main to my natural, and we can take 1 drone off my main because we're 1 over, and send it to the natural. Now, the pool's done. Hatcheries are done. I'm going to make 2 queens, 4 lings, and now I'm looking at my supply, and we're about to cap, so I'm going to make an overlord. And now the natural's done, so we're going to take our natural overlord and send it down behind his main base, kind of where your overlord was chilling in your game.
Okay.
And now I'm 5SDing while I'm scouting again. You could see the natural here, and you could see the ramp, and you could just go like this. Be like, and even if you aggro a marine, watch this. Like, oh, I aggroed a marine, and I saw he has a barracks and a factory. Click the cliff in the center, and then you're good to go. Like, you can even do shift hold position as well. And I'm still 5SDing as soon as I did that. And this overlord, even if the marine was shooting you the whole time, you would not die. And then you can see the circles in the center of that cliff, the little for the overlord on the ground. And now that's invisible. And then now my queens are done, so I go back to my base. I'm making a lair. I'm making a 3rd queen, and I'm, making an overlord so we don't block. And I'm 5SDing again. And I'm just chilling. And I'm only focused now on injecting my bases and making overlords and drones. That's all I'm focused on. I don't give a shit about what he's doing, because like if it was your game, I know he has a natural, and I don't care anymore. I know that I can get away with what I'm doing now because he expanded. Because he's not all-inning me on 1 base. So I inject immediately right away. The second your inject pops off, your first inject and you spin it, now you make your gases and your Evo chamber roach and stuff like that. Because you can actually afford it. Because notice how I'm spending all my money, like, repeatedly. Like, as soon as I have that larva round, this is when you can finally afford your roach warren and your gas and your Evo for your natural.
I guess I've been too, like, not the timings. I haven't been really sure of what the timings were.
Yeah.
I've been too anxious to get everything on the board.
Yep. Exactly. Like, you just feel unsafe, and you're like, I might die. I need to make sure I don't die here.
Yeah.
And now we have a fully saturated natural, and or I don't actually. And now we do. I just made 2 more drones, and now we're gonna go ahead and make a few roaches. And we're still spreading creep. All we're doing right now, literally, is we're spreading creep, and we're always watching the hatcheries to go, oh, we need to inject again. Oh, we need to inject again. Okay, cool. And we can make a round of safety roaches. Just a little bit of safety roaches. And remember what I told you, how I said you could have 66 drones by, like, 5:30, and you only had, like, 42 or something? We're at 4:30 already. We're a full minute before that, and we're at the same drone count you were at. And we have the roaches and the lair and all these things. And all I'm doing is going drones, overlords, injects, and creep. And it's like this, okay? I go, okay, well, I can inject. I'm gonna make an overlord because I'm about to make a lot of larvae. I make drones. And now I just did all the larvae. I'm still going 5SD. I can't do anything with it. I'll look at my creep queen now, and I'll go make a creep tumor. 5SD. Look at my creep tumor. Click it. Look at another creep tumor. Click it. 5SD. Okay, now let's go back to my inject queens. How are they doing? I can't do an inject yet. 5SD. Okay, let's take my creep queen now and send it to my 3rd to become an injector. Let's make a 4th queen now to take creep over again. Let's make another overlord so we don't block. 5SD. Inject. Okay, it's ready to go now. Inject. And look at 5:30. And look at the drone count. We're at 64. We're like 1 or 2 under the. No, now we're at 535. We're at 66. So you definitely can macro your ass off a bit harder for sure. And we have roach speed already. We have +1 weapons already. We can saturate our gas in our main. We can take a 4th base because we're looking really solid here with drone count. And we have another queen. We just injected our base. We can inject our main. We can inject our natural. We can throw down a few overlords. And we can do some creep while we do 5 SD. Spread some creep. All we're doing is we're just checking the bases for injects and drones, and we're 5 SDing our asses off so hard. Now we can rally all our hatcheries to the 4th base, and we can keep making drones until, if you mouse over your supply in top right, you can see your drone count. I don't know if you know that. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we're going to drone all the way to like 84 or so. Just in the 80s. We can inject, make drones. We're at 86. We went a little over, but that's totally fine. How about we make a second Evo now and an infestation pit so we can go into a hive soon. And now let's just start making hydras.
Okay.
And we just injected, so now we're going to creep spread again. Because all we're doing is mechanics of Zerg. And I don't give a shit what my opponent's doing, and the reason why is because if I play efficiently like this, you maxed out at 13 minutes, remember that. And your opponent was on par with your supply the whole time. You were never like massively ahead or behind him. And now if you're like, oh fuck, I just supply blocked myself. Oh no, I don't give a shit at this point. If you're done making drones and you have a ton of money coming in, you can make 8 overlords at once. Who gives a shit? Go for it. That's totally fine. Now that this base is also fully saturated, start another base. And you can be like, oh look, we're getting attacked by some bio. Just select all army, A move towards it, and don't even pay attention. Like, who gives a fuck? It's just, whatever happens is going to happen. Because microing is just going to slow you down.
Immediately go back to
injecting. Yep,
injecting.
Exactly. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to make more hydras. I didn't even watch that fight. Because again, it's not what you should be looking at. You should be looking at your creep. You should be looking at your injecting energy. All that stuff. Your supply so you don't block. And then you're just, you know, and you just alternate the tasks. So you go, I injected. I can't inject anymore, so now I'm going to creep spread. And every time you're between tasks, you always do a round of larva. It's drones until you're at the 80 round, and then you start, then whatever unit you're going to make with, if it's hydras, you just make hydras. And, you know, so I'm injecting all my bases. I'm just moving my camera on the screen like you would. And then now I'm done injecting, so let's go check our creep again. Go, okay, we can spread creep again. Cool. And then you could be like, all right, let's move my queen forward a bit, make some more hydras again, and then make a new tumor over here, maybe like a second tumor or whatever. And now it's been a little while since I injected. Let's go check injects again, and they're ready to go. Inject, and then get ready to make hydras. We're actually at a hive now, and we can now, and we're also maxed out at 844. Then you max out at 13. So if you just do this, it doesn't matter what your opponent does because you will win simply off the fact that you just have more shit than they do by a lot.
Oh yeah.
And then, you know, while you're like, you can send your roaches out to go scout his base and be like, okay, what base do I want to attack? I don't need to micro it. I just need to know where I want to send my army. What is the most vulnerable location Terran has? And then while you're waiting for this, you could be spreading creep and injecting larva. Inject. Look at your main base. You can see a red number there, so you're like, let's fix that. Rip 2 drones off, send them to another base. And you're like, okay, I don't see any bases on the top side, and I don't see a third. Looks like he's only 2 basing me. So you could be like this. A move the front of his natural. Just shift A move like what I'm doing here on the stream right now. If you can see my commands, like you can, just so you don't get stuck behind a wall. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the front of his ramp, and then I'm going to go into it. In case he has a wall here with depots, I'll go to the front of that. I'll go into the natural deep and just kill everything there. I'll go to the ramp in case he has a wall there, so my units don't get stupid on the cliff. And then I'll go behind the main again. While that's happening, you don't look at it. You just go back to injecting. If you have any extra excess any excess energy, you can shift Q it up. And then you look at your bases again. This is a macro priority, right? You're like, all right, let's fix that drone count. Send 2 over somewhere else. All right, we're good. We're good now. Let's go for another round of creep while we're waiting. And then you could watch your supply while you're doing this. And you could be like, oh, look at my supply. I'm losing some. Let's make some units. Again, make more hydras while you still spread your creep. Because your eyeballs are up here and you're still spread. Like your eyeballs are going from the center of the screen to the top right. Center, top right. Because you're just looking at that. And then as soon as you're done spreading creep, restart the task. Okay, let's inject again. Let's inject again. And then check your upgrades, whatever. Check your macro, check your bases, look at the red, send it over. Now look at your creep again. Spread your creep. You can literally, like, you will feel overwhelmed by this at first. 100%. You're going to be like, God damn, this never ends. I don't ever have a moment to breathe. I just got to do this all the time. But once you get faster at it, it'll start being like, okay, I can do this really fast now. And it'll start turning into shit like this, where you're going to be like, all right, I got to go through my rounds on my base really fast. Okay, inject, inject, inject. Okay, do my creep, 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 creep. And then you can be like, okay, well now I have a moment because I can't inject their creep. Okay, look at my army. It's going well. Cool. And then go back to your base. Like, you'll start getting faster and faster and faster and faster. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And then once you get to, like, that's when you're going to start seeing promotions start happening. And once you get to a certain point where you're just fucking cruising, like if you become this kind of a player, where let's just say I'm not going to leave this game yet. Let's just say you develop like an inject method, and what you want to do is you want to like issue commands to your hydras, but you need to inject and creep spread really fast. You could be like, okay, inject, 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 creep, 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 creep. And now look at the inject timer. I have like another 15 seconds to wait or so before I can do it again. It's not even halfway done yet, and it's a 30-second thing. And now I can do commands to my hydras while I'm chilling. And I have plenty of time to micro because I can do that shit super fast. That's the goal. What you should be aiming for is being able to macro so you do it so often that you can just crush the macro tasks, and then you have time to chill. And if you get really fast at it, suddenly it's time to inject again, and you can be like, inject, inject, inject. Let's do another creep, 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 creep. And now you go back to your aim again. Like, you're cruising. You can do it super quick. Yeah, but until you get to that point, don't micro and just focus on your macro and make sure all of that shit's flowing. Like, you don't have oversaturated drones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hell yeah.
All right, man. So I would highly recommend going into that replay and saving it, just so you use it as a guide. Like, look at the timer and look at when I have certain supplies and stuff, and you can use it to reference yourself and see if you're keeping on par with it.
Okay.
And before we wrap up, do you have any questions about anything?
No, I got a lot of information. I appreciate you taking the time and helping me out, and you know, I can't stress it enough. I got the gold just watching your videos. So
hell yeah, man. Well, thank you for doing a lesson. I wish you the best of luck, and yeah, take it easy, dude.
You too, bro.
I'll catch you next time, man.
All right, bub.
All right, guys, that has been another coaching lesson with our boy Josh. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed it, please don't hesitate to go check out more videos. I have tons of coaching videos like this, and I have a series for it's like basically like a guide about how to go through all the leagues in StarCraft and what you should prioritize. It's called Bronze to GM series. Go check out any of that stuff if you guys are interested. But again, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, stay healthy. Peace, guys.